everyone. Welcome, excuse me, to episode 7 of Writing with Subtext. I am your host, Jim Hall, the CEO, founder, and developer of Narrative First. And my co-host, or my guest on this is Diane Moore. Hi, Diane. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jim. How are you this week?
I'm doing great. So the exciting news is we've got such great positive feedback from the show, and people are learning so many great things about it that we want to take this back from YouTube to Subtext. So if you followed along and you feel like you have learned something amazing and you feel like, oh, this is a really amazing way to learn story, then what you'll want to do is go subscribe to Subtext, which is the service that I have created through my company Narrative First, where you can build out your stories, which is exactly what we've been using with Diane, what I've actually been using with her to build. So you can build your story and do the same thing. And what I'm just going to do is continue this series, and we're going to go through all of Diane's story, which could take quite a while at the pace that we're going, which is normal. And then, because now there's a waiting list of people who want to be like Diane, then, if you want to work your way through the story, you'll have to get on a waiting list. That's a bit of a stretch, but then I'll just work through people's stories in about half an hour, 45 minutes each week. And it's just a great way to learn how to use all this story theory in a practical way to help tell your story. So that would be Subtext, which is either at subtextapp.com, so subtextapp.com, or you can go to app.narrativefirst.com, and that's where you can subscribe.
I'm pretty sure the links are below.
And the links are below, so yes.
There you go.
No, you're definitely sure. So last week, the homework was for you to work through the first act and work through these beats. So when we created this story, so this is the narrative structure of the story, which has all these thematic elements that are all tied together to tell Diane's story. We came up with an order of events, and we looked at them at a larger scale. What happens in each act. That's what these numbers here are along the side here. And then I had Diane break them down into even smaller bits. So this is, whereas here Layla, the main character, is made to understand something, then this is the beginning, middle, event, and end of that story. And what we're doing right now is just working through the overall story, so it's the plot. That's the easiest part to work through. Eventually we'll get to the main character and the influence character and all that other stuff. But for right now, we're just going to deal strictly with the plot. But I think before we get started, you had a question about conflict?
Yeah, I do. So you have an article on Narrative First about developing conflict. And basically it's create a truth and then put it in a context, and then the conflict comes in when you change the context.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you remember what the title of that was? I have a couple hundred.
Not off the top of my head, but I know if you put conflict into the search on Narrative First, it's one of the first 4 or 5.
Every article about? Is it a method for generating conflict? Is that
yes.
It? Okay.
Yep.
So let me bring that up for people.
By the way, everyone, we will make sure that we link to this article below.
Yes. All right. So here, a method for generating conflict. Yes?
Yes.
Position one truth against another, and you'll find the foundation for a great narrative. Brilliant. Okay.
So my question was, how do you take this technique and apply it to a specific topic to create story-specific conflict? So like, how do you take this technique and apply it to the senses element in the story structure? So it was like, the first one was instinct, and then the second one was senses and interpretation. The last one was conditioning for Layla understanding that magic is a thing.
Okay.
So I wanted to know how you would apply this technique for generating conflict to a specific element.
Okay. So you mean these elements?
No.
No.
Go to the overall story.
Okay.
These elements. So like it says, Reuben triggers someone's innate abilities. That's the instinct one, right?
Yes.
So how do I apply that technique to instinct?
So you're asking, I'm wondering if it's not applicable. So that article, let me just bring up the whiteboard now that I'm excited I have a whiteboard. So that article was about people need blank, right?
Uh-huh.
In order to blank. Okay. It's a little bit longer. People need so-and-so in order to so-and-so. Okay. What is the... So you're asking about instinct in particular, right?
It doesn't matter which element that we applied this to. I wanted to know how to apply it, because I mean, on the surface, this seems like a good way to generate conflict, maybe.
Yes.
But if you're trying to design conflict specifically around a specific element, and I couldn't see how to apply it. So that's why I'm asking, is because I was like,
Well, that's why I'm not sure it's quite apropos for this. Like, for instance, let me go back to the story form here and show you what it's really talking about. So, and we haven't talked about this quite yet, but Layla is the main character, yes?
yes.
And her point of view is driven by feelings somehow,
Okay, yeah,
which we haven't quite
gotten to yet.
gotten to. But just in a brief sentence, how would you express that if you have an idea of it? If not, we can make something up for now.
Okay, so Layla is driven by her need to protect, to be the protector of her brother, because their father is a drunk and she has basically been running their lives since she was 6. So for 7 years she's been the adult, and she feels responsible. She feels great love and devotion to Cozy, because she feels like they're all each other has.
So none of that is what this would be as far as feeling goes. It's interesting and it's compelling, but a feeling as a source of drive would be something like, I hate it when people are sad, or I hate it when people are hurting. I hate to see people hurt. So because of that, I do such and such. Or I put myself in danger because I don't like them to feel that way. I don't like feeling this way. That's how you would use feeling as an inequity.
Okay.
Feeling something for someone is a storytelling, but then where's the actual inequity in that? So mine
Well,
is,
I mean, the inequity in that comes through uh, so she feels the need to be the responsible party so that she and Cozy can stay together. It's been her fear that, someone would, come. She never figured anything like this, but that someone would come and try and split them up. And because dad was drunk. So that's literally why she's so unwilling to, just leave him.
Mm, okay, so is it that she doesn't want to feel alone? There has to be some, so feeling in itself, it's not, I feel responsible. It's hard because it's got ing in here, but it's emotioning. So it's like
Emotion.
I do everything based on emotion, and because of that, it's a huge problem for me. You're going to show it in a positive light, but it has to still generate conflict.
Okay.
Um, so this is something that we haven't touched on yet that is definitely missing from your story for right now.
Okay.
Just uh, and we can always change this later. But what would be is it that she doesn't? So if her dad was that way, and she maybe she felt alone, and so she can't stand when people feel alone. So that's why she's always protecting people. That's like I can't stand it when emotions aren't right, so then I have to start doing things. And then when a little bit of logic comes in, a little bit of rationale, is like you can't save everybody. It's like, oh, okay, and that kind of demotivates that drive until it kicks back up again, and you're like, I can't stand somebody feeling this way. I got to do this, or I don't like it when I feel this way. So it's really just like strict emotions.
Okay.
There's,
I will think on that for her.
can you just make up something just for the sake of this?
Yes. Okay. So if she needs to be emotioning, she has to. And okay, she's. Well, does it work that she's terrified that someone would separate her from her brother?
If you cast it as like she doesn't like feeling um, those emotions,
Okay.
so it's
We can
not
go
just
with that. We can go with that for right now.
it's an emotional like uh, I don't like those emotions. So you would say she doesn't like feeling scared. She never wants to feel scared again because that's how her dad used to make her feel.
Still makes her feel. Okay, yeah. That would be true.
Is that good? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back here. Okay. So you just said I'm just picking a color. I like this color. Okay. People need to not feel scared. Okay.
Okay.
It's a little light. I guess I'll make it bold again. Or I won't. Purpose. Change it? No. 1 second as I learn how to work my whiteboard here. There.
Oh, that's why, because the box is way bigger than that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, but here, whoops, it's like Mad Libs. All right, but you see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I can make this. Why can't you change it? That's ridiculous. There it goes. Okay. Okay. So people need to not feel scared in order to blah, 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 right?
Hmm.
So what is she, if you were to ask Layla, and I realize we're just doing this on the spot, she would believe people need to not feel scared. Why?
Uh, People need to not feel scared in order to be able to function. In
To feel like
so so with her background, she would have to overcome fear in order to go to school, get cozy to school. In order to make life function, she couldn't be operating from a place of fear.
Okay. So in order to be functional, or
Yeah.
to live and thrive, how about that? In order to thrive, right?
Okay.
It's more, that feels more,
Layla-esque.
yeah. Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's nicely. Okay, so and what that is, what you have there is that's a truism.
Okay.
What Layla would say. People need to not feel scared in order to thrive. That's her belief, right? Her belief system. So the way you generate conflict then is to change the context, because context is meaning. So that's that whole idea of one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the context is different, and that's how you get, that's how things mean stuff, and that's where there's conflict, because some people see it one way and some people see it the other way. It's not just an opposite. That statement is kind of an opposite. True conflict is when there's two truisms that can't exist at the same time. So in reference back to that original article that you referred to, unless, that's just a really simple way of changing the context.
Okay, so the unless is when it's okay to feel scared?
It's a contradictory truism that's equally as valid, but that can't exist at the same time as this. So people need to, so you as an author, you believe this very strongly, I'm sure, because that came from you, right?
Yeah.
Unless what? What's a context? And you don't necessarily have to believe this, but what would be an opposite context where that is not true?
Okay, so people need to not feel scared in order to thrive unless it's really hard for me to come up with an opposite. Wait a minute. When is it okay? When is it okay? That's the question, right? That I'm trying to answer. When is it okay to be afraid?
You could kind of say it like that. It's more like, so people need to not feel scared in order to thrive, unless that would be the opposite of that. It's a different situation where that's not true.
Unless survival is more important to them. But
okay, that's the right direction. But what? What were you gonna say?
well, I was gonna say that to me, survival is part of thriving. They're hand in hand. They're not really different.
But what would be? But you're on the right track though. So what's the difference between? Or what's a way to take that further away from thriving when it comes to survival?
I don't know if they're cooped up with a maniac.
Yeah, but that's not like a true.
I'm trying to think of times when the modus operandi of fear is beneficial, and I'm not sure I believe that there is one. So
Well, it's not so much the fear, but it's you'll tolerate it because this other context is better.
so you can tolerate fear when you can tolerate fear. I don't know. I guess you can tolerate fear when you're trying to protect someone else.
Uh, but how would that be an opposite? Like both those could exist. Like you could not feel scared in order to thrive and protect someone else. That's exactly what Layla's doing. So there's no real conflict there. what about this, which I think is something that you're getting close to? So people need to not feel scared in order to thrive unless they're more comfortable being taken care of.
I would have trouble making that argument, but okay.
Okay, so you for sure, right? Because you feel this very strongly.
Yeah.
But there's another viewpoint, another mindset that says
That
this
says
isn't as important
comfort
as,
isn't as important as or being taken care of is more important than how scared you are.
yeah. I mean, you could reword this to say unless comfort is more important. Comfort and being taken care of, actually, that's probably better. Comfort and being taken care of is more important. It's the same idea, right?
Yep.
But do you see these two don't exist? Especially if that comfort comes with somebody yelling at you and making you feel like crap, but it's like, but he pays the bills and that's good. So that's the conflict, right?
Okay.
Do you get that, or are you not?
No, I do get it. I'm still trying to see if this applies to developing conflict, because that was the thing I was running into last week, is running into trying to please you.
Oh, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, about what conflict was. So I spent a lot of this week trying to figure out, looking up things that were saying what conflict is, and mostly what I came across were things like it's a desire plus an obstacle.
Oh, I know what you're doing. Okay, yes. So,
And so I was trying to figure out a technique that would give me a base that I could build on as I was filling out the different parts for each of the what do you call those?
story beats.
Story beats.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We'll get to that part. I am going to take you back that. I'm just showing you something else first. You specifically brought up this article. And so now you have two truisms that can't exist in the same place at the same time. People need to not feel scared in order to thrive unless they're happy or being taken care of, unless comfort is more important.
And that's a good overall argument. I can see that being the basis of a story, but that doesn't help me develop story beat arguments or conflicts.
So I'll get back to that 1 second. So this is very much two perspectives that don't fit together.
Okay.
So what this is actually talking about is the relationship between the main character perspective and the influence character perspective. So this is the people need la 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 in order to blah blah blah, and this is the unless. So
okay.
Actually two truisms that aren't working with each other. So assuming this is the story that you wanted to tell, you have the first one, people need to not be yelled at or not to feel scared in order to thrive, which is where Layla's coming from. And you had the opposite side where it's like, unless they'd rather be taken care of. So they would tolerate that kind of abuse because they like the comfort of that. Now, you had a really, really hard time coming up with that. But the nice thing about the story form and about Dramatica theory is if this is what you want to say, it's telling you, oh, by the way, this is what
the opposite of that is.
Now, I actually didn't look. Usually I do cheat and look to see. I actually did the comfort thing just intuitively. But you can see that being taken care of and being more comfortable with that would motivate somebody to avoid conflict, right? Like, I don't want to upset him. I'm just saying if this is like the father or whatever, right?
Right.
Delay, like procrastinating, talking to him about things, or letting him know what's wrong, delaying the blow-ups, like always trying to put off finishing high school, moving on because it's better. I just want to stay at home until I'm 29 or however long people stay at home nowadays. The future is like, that's always something that is a problem because I'm going to totally avoid all that. And then the universe or the situation is, I love just being taken, like everything's taken care of. My external state is. So now, I believe this is her brother, right? Isn't the influence character?
We haven't picked the influence character yet. I'm still leaning towards either Ebony or Ruben.
So one or the other is going to be coming from that point of view. So now you already have the influence character just with developing out that conflict. That's what that article is all about, is trying to figure out those two broad perspectives.
Okay.
So specifically the main character and influence character. I don't get into it in the article, but that's what Dramatica theory is all about, is putting those two perspectives. And the overall story and relationships are actually the same thing, but they're about groups as opposed to the individual. So that's what you just did. So that's one way to figure out if you have a really strong main character and you feel really strongly about this first line here, people need to not feel scared in order to thrive. And then if you're lost and you're like, I don't know, I can't come up with this unless, you can just go right to the story form and look to it and think like, oh, okay, well.
Unless they want to avoid
conflict.
And
your point of view is right in your head as the author, that first line. So the whole story is an argument saying, no, this is right. You have a right to not feel scared. And what happens is, because she stays with that, she stays steadfast, she gets whoever you end up choosing as the influence character to move out of that avoiding conflict towards chasing it, like maybe purposely going after it, or pursuing dreams, or whatever it is that pursuit is, because of this different viewpoint that you put the audience in. They get to see, oh, this is actually a way to find triumph, to succeed, and to feel really good about, if you stick with this and don't let people get hurt and don't take the rational way out, you can make things better for other people. And that's what the whole story is about. So that article is more about getting these two perspectives and understanding that they're truisms, and that changing the context of that is what changes the meaning of it, which creates the conflict. So that's
okay. So it's looking at a broader level than I was trying to apply it to.
Yes. Now, the idea that there's an inequity there, that two things can't exist in the same place at the same time, that is still the basis of all conflict. So the idea of inequity is still there. So then, coming back to your original question, which was, how the heck do I turn Ruben triggers someone's innate abilities while making someone understand something? How do I turn that into a point of conflict, right? That was the original question.
Mm-hmm.
So Cozy performs magic, and Layla tries to get out because she doesn't understand why. Is it the first one or the second one?
So I didn't delete anything that was there, but if I felt like I had a better idea, then I put that at the top. So I changed it to...
So it's not... One thing you want to avoid when you work with this stuff is not must or tries or struggles, but it's actually happening.
Point of question again.
Uh-huh.
So conflict is try. Conflict, if you run up against, let's use Mike's explanation of this as an example. So on the Dramatica forums, Mike says, conflict is a character plus a desire and plus a thing that is incompatible with that desire, I think is what he says.
What was that again? So character plus
desire plus thing that is incompatible with the desire.
Incompatible with the desire equals what? Conflict?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is How do you not see that? Oh, what's my question? My question is, how do you not see that as just a very long-winded way of saying inequity? So in other words, let's see here.
Because inequity means something different to me. Inequity doesn't necessarily. Give you an example. $950 is a lot to pay for rent for
That's okay.
for a room.
Oh, and you don't mind that going out to everybody?
I'm not being specific.
Okay, do you want me to talk about? I could explain how that's an inequity.
I mean, I guess my desire is stronger than that particular inequity. That my daughters be together and in the correct place.
Let's try this. Let's do. Can I draw a circle here? Ooh, neat. All right, circle, right?
You are having so much fun with that.
I love this. All right, so here's a circle, right?
Okay.
This is you at one with the universe, and there's no motivation. This is peace. This is what we like to call. Let's see. Equity. Ah, that feels good, right? Equity is very peaceful. There's no conflict because there's no sense of separateness. The moment you feel
Dissonance.
more fundamental than that, the moment you feel some sort of separateness between this and this, suddenly now you have an inequity, and the inequity is not here in the equity, and it's not here in the separateness, it's in the space in between. So it is this space in between is the inequity. Oh, I'm so excited that I have a whiteboard. This is an inequity, is the space in between. So that's why people get super frustrated and like, well, where is inequity? I don't see it. And we say, oh, it's in the middle of all the through lines. Like we were just saying the main character and the influence character perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back here. Main character is the top one, influence character is the bottom one. The inequity isn't here, and it's not here. It's in between. So you can't actually define an inequity unless you define the parts around it. You talk around it. That's what's creating that. I have to resolve this somehow.
Okay.
So all this formula up here that Mike is talking about, I mean, the character is like, that's just the point of view. So the desire, you know, if you don't have desire, then you're at this equity spot. But then once you have two incompatible desires, that's what he's trying to get at here. Now there's an inequity there that creates conflict. So you're not trying
Okay, so
to get
so
here.
this is really esoteric and vague presented this way. So can we lock it down to something specific like a tiger trying to eat you?
Okay. So a tiger trying to eat you. So
That's conflict, right? That would be a physical conflict.
it depends. Do you want to be eaten?
Do most people want to be eaten?
That's a huge assumption that you have to break out of. That's the biggest problem I have with anybody over the last 4 years is their assumption that something is a conflict because they just assume, well, that's how the world is.
Okay, but that is not an unreasonable assumption that people don't want to be eaten by a tiger.
But
It is also perfectly reasonable to assume that a tiger wants to be fed and eat the people.
I'm not talking about the difference in opinion between the tiger and the person. I'm talking about you as an author writing a story about somebody who either wants or doesn't want to be eaten. So the same way that this seems perfectly reasonable to you and you thought, oh, there's no way anybody would want to feel scared in order to thrive, your unreasonable is somebody else's reasonable. So there, you could have something else like people need to feel comfort, or people need to be taken care of in order to feel comfortable. Like there, you could do that story, and there are people that prefer that to always being on edge about how other people are feeling, like a codependent sort of relationship. Because this is all based on how other people are making me feel. But some people are like, you know what, I care less about that. I just like feeling comfortable. So then that's how you create conflict, is not in somebody trying something or the thing where it's like one character wants an ice cream and the other person doesn't want them to have the ice cream, and now you have conflict. That's going to go nowhere. The conflict is when there's when there's an equity, when there's two things that can't exist at the same time. So for instance, if you want to go back to, I can make a new whiteboard here. Okay, so you want to do the tiger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do people. I wish I could copy that other one. People need what in order to... All right, so your tiger example, right? There's a tiger that wants to eat somebody. So what does the person, your point of view, which is the reasonable point of view, is what?
People need to not be eaten by tigers.
What would you call that? Maybe people need courage in order to stay alive to fight tigers. I mean, we're assuming that the tiger thing is the situation. So a tiger wants to eat a person. So people need courage in order to stay alive, right?
Okay.
Unless, what? Oh, God, hold on. Unless, what's another truism?
We've already established that I am bad at this.
How would you really have conflict? Is the conflict really a tiger wants to eat me, I need to kill the tiger? Where's the conflict in that? That's super easy. There's no drive. There's no inequity. There's no two truisms working against each other.
I'm sorry. I feel like fighting with the tiger to stay alive would be kind of conflicty.
Where's the difficulty in that?
Tigers have teeth and claws and are a hell of a lot faster than a human.
But where's the dilemma?
I mean,
So there's no dilemma. It's like, yeah, there's a tiger. He's got teeth. All right, I'm going to kill him. But then that's the end of it. There's no conflict there.
you're not going to kill the tiger. The tiger's going to kill you. Don't you want to stay alive?
Some people do. But what's another? The easy route is unless they don't want to live. All right, so that's just two opposites. But that's...
But that's not a conflict, because, I mean, unless... To me, that's not a reasonable conflict. That doesn't show conflict because there's no rationality to it. Okay, people need courage to stay alive when a tiger is about to eat you unless they prefer to die to protect someone else. I told you I was bad.
But I mean, that's like, all right, I'll just die. There's no dilemma.
Well, it's not I'll just die, but I will get in the way. I will slow it down. I will. It's not that they want to die. It's not that they want to be eaten by the tiger. It's that somebody else that they feel. I mean, would you step in front of a tiger for your kids?
Under the right context, I would. People need, this is better. People need to kill in order to stay alive. Right, that's better. Tiger's about to eat you. You need to kill him in order to stay alive. That's a truth.
Okay.
Unless, what?
If the situation is the tiger is about to eat you, there is no unless. Unless. Hang on. I'm trying.
There's a really good one.
Spit it out then.
Now you have a conflict. Now you have a dilemma. These are two truisms that can't exist. I need to kill in order to stay alive, but I believe every life is precious. Ah. Now the scene can turn. Now there's an actual turn, because it's like, what is the choice?
I'm studying this.
That's perfect. Well, that'll give you a perfect time to put on the episode for the next one. And that's the perfect end. That feeling that I need to study that, it's both the feeling that an inequity should have, but it also means you're starting to get it. Because then you're like, oh, okay. Because you can see like these two can't exist in the same place. Now there's this inequity here, right? So this is every life is precious. This is I need to kill to survive. Now these both are here. Now it's like, this is what Mike is talking about the two desires. I mean, it's kind of the same sort of thing, sort of. That's what's driving conflict.
So you can only have one or the other. You can only have every life is precious, which means I die, or I need to kill, which will kill me anyway, because every life is precious.
But this is even worse. Every life is precious means your life is precious too. So now what's going to happen? Even more charged. That's the best part. Because it's not just black and white, like I need to kill or I need to die for this person. That's like black and white. There's no difference there. This is black and white here and then gray. That's the real conflict. It's like, well, this is really clear, but this is like, everything is together. And that's what drives scenes, drives stories. That's conflict there.
Okay. So you're looking for that moral gray.
Yeah, you could put it that way. You're looking for the moral gray that works against the black and white. It's really just two truisms that just can't. They're different contexts, the same situation, but two contexts that don't work together. And then how does that play out? And then that creates the potential for the next scene. Creates the potential for the next scene. And then you go through that.
I still don't see this at a scene level, though. This is much broader than that. This is like what we were talking about before when we were talking about this being two perspectives.
But you could see this in a scene.
Maybe.
So what we'll do is next time we'll start with this and take that first scene, and I'll show you how that works.
Okay.
Sound good?
Oops. And here everybody thought they were going to get to see the first act.
This is even better. No, this is amazing. Trust me. This is like, oh, that's how you create a scene. Trust me. This is probably the best episode out of all of them, which is great.
Good. Conflict gold.
Yeah, because then this is like, and then what it does is it creates the inequity to get people to then move to subtext to find out how it all plays out, which is how you want every scene to work in a story, so that every scene moves to the next scene like, oh, how does that inequity play out? So again, all All future episodes will be on Subtext, which you can find at subtextapp.com or app.narrativefirst.com. And we're going to continue this series until we get all the way through Diane's story and create the greatest amount of conflict and the greatest amount of conflicting truisms in each and every scene that plays out throughout the entire story. And we would love for you to join us there. Do you have any closing words, Diane?
Oh, no, just I hope that everybody comes with us over to Subtext. This has been so amazing, and the feedback we've gotten has just been so heartwarming, and I just really appreciate the support that I've gotten and that Jim's gotten. This has been amazing.
Yes, well, you're a great student, and it's really fun to watch this grow and develop. So we will carry this on, and thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.